it's just by the way. I mean, I posted something on Facebook that I found a woman who tweeted on Twitter after the Roe versus Wade decision. She said that she's going to burn down every,
Yeah, that's
or
not
that
protected speech.
we should burn down every government building. Da 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 da.
Yeah.
And she
So
got a letter from the Homeland Security.
It's not
That's
protected speech, and I'm pretty sure
it
it applies
should
in
it should
Germany.
it should be protected speech. And if it doesn't apply here, it should.
Threatening violence. I kind of
That's not threatening violence. I mean, let's say she was joking. Let's say it's a joke. Let's say it's satire. I mean, you
you
can't.
have to have some kind of structure and a rubric to have law and order.
let me get.
You're right,
let me
but
give you
if she
some- let me
burns
give
down
you-
a building, then take her to jail.
So
but not if
preventative
she-
measures like for
but
shooting
not-
up
but
kids
n-
in elementary school shouldn't apply to you.
All right.
What do you mean by
Emiliano,
that? I mean,
That's happening in the United States, and there's people showing signs of those violent tendencies based on what they say. So I think I disagree with you.
Do you have to wait? Do you have to make a society that
Yeah, if
Where
you're
you-
going to
where
go
you-
ahead and say you're going to kill little kids, yeah. Sorry, I'll disagree with you all day on that.
Yeah, okay, but you want us, I mean, this is a very
Sandy Hook,
important-
Uvalde, how many more do you need to say, hey, no, yeah, we've got to do something?
Wait a minute, though.
yeah,
For
but
those examples,
okay,
where
but
were-
what
where
but
were
what
those-
are you
how were
going to
those
do? That's the thing.
incidents- Sorry, Edward.
Go
How were
ahead.
those incidents precipitated by somebody abusing speech in a public forum?
Well, it depends what they're
Hmm.
abusing. How are they abusing speech? With
Well-
inciting violence?
Yeah.
You're not protected. That's not protected
No.
speech.
But,
I mean,
but that's not what I mean. But like you're pointing to Sandy Hook as a reason to justify censoring the kind of speech that we're talking about at the moment. But and while I'm kind of like, yeah, you shouldn't be inciting violence. I agree with that sentiment. However, draw me the line from the public incitement to Sandy Hook.
All
Right,
laws are not
and-
going to be able to have 100% effective rates. I mean, that's not realistic
Right,
to
but-
just, but they need to have something to have a society.
But we already have laws to
Like
To
it's
counter
already
that,
illegal to do
and that
violence.
law is free speech. So like I mean, James, you just said something about bombing
Right.
a center. I mean, what did you mean by that? I mean, that's
So
what people
let-
should say.
Let me tell you, yeah.
And-
so
and-
let
and
me,
keep
let me give
speech-
something
and
that
keep speech
Emiliano
going.
can use on YouTube and then also explain what I meant.
Yeah.
When my wife put in her immigration papers, the immigration policy, I don't know if this is how the policy read or if this was just how they decided to use their authority, but they sent her back to Mexico and forced her to reapply and wait outside. This ended up being a 2-year process, and because our son was an infant at the time, he went with her because infant should be with mother. And the amount of suffering that they experienced while there, I directly hold accountable the immigration bureau department of the United States, for lack of a better word, and the people that, so I mean, he was sick a lot. They were held up at gunpoint more than once while they were there, just things that wouldn't have happened if they were here. And so my kind of rage and depression over the situation, something just clicked on in my brain, and I was like, this is why terrorists do what they do.
Yeah, and your explanation of that makes sense, and I think everybody would agree with your anger, and you're not saying that you're going to go bomb a specific place. That's not what you're saying.
Right.
You're expressing anger, and that's what the woman did who expressed anger when she heard about Roe versus Wade, which is very unfair law against her, and she shouldn't be spied on by our government and being sent threatening letters that she's going to get arrested if she says anything like that again. That's horrible. That's what East Germany did, and that's why the country's gone now. I mean,
Yeah.
and YouTube should allow people to say what you said, and should allow people like me to ask, "What do you mean?" And you explain it, and now we understand. And if some crazy nut who is going to go shoot up an elementary school says that he's going to go shoot up a elementary school, and we ask him, "What do you mean?" And he says, "This elementary school, I'm going to go shoot it up." And we ask him, "When?" I mean, we need free speech to hold people accountable, and that'll solve the problems.
But free speech with no
Otherwise,
like specified
arrest people who
language.
do acts.
That's the problem I wonder about. Hey, you just sent something on the Twitter, James. I'm sorry for interrupting, but it's
Yeah, that was the source on the homeless comparison per 10,000 from the United States to Germany.
Oh, this is for Edward. Okay.
So that was the source. So you can tell me, maybe Edward, you'll be able to.
Yeah, and then a lot of people
I didn't get it, but go ahead.
Well, hey, James,
on,
I do want to pick.
But Emiliana, a note on the podcast: are you able to like bring things up like Joe Rogan does, and that would be cool.
Bring up what do you mean? What
Yeah,
he does?
you know how he just live checked. He says, "What's the guy's Jamie or somebody?"
Yeah, I
He
could
says,
do that.
Jamie,
I just haven't.
can you check that?
Here, I can do that right now. Let's go ahead and share that. Let's go share that, Jamie.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, let me go ahead and share. I got my share
Yeah,
button
because
on my
like you say with facts and stuff, I think that really gives it's kind of like a gyroscope to is it gyroscope? Yeah.
Here we
To
go.
Joe Rogan's
Can you see that?
podcast. Yeah, Yahoo. Yeah.
Where do I have to go? James, this is what I got.
Not the exact page.
Okay, sorry. What I got. I was trying to like, is this for me or what is this? But well, that's the thing. You know what? We're over here trying to define problems, and we need to be able to use words to focus in on the areas where they need to be, where the solutions were best set. And, yeah,
I mean that was a wonderful example. I mean, if
James,
you
who was president when that happened? Barack Obama? Bush? And just to be fair, Bush is a Republican, but Barack Obama is also known as the deporter in chief. I'm fair.
Which is why labels can be misleading.
But no, that's right leaning to me. You're not an inclusive person. He was against gay marriage too. So I'm not
only because it was politically expedient to be.
Yeah,
he's not against it now.
Because he's just not sincere.
You just don't need to bring a vague term in there that just makes the conversation more vague, right? I mean, just say that he deported more people. That's the fact. Okay, but saying that he was right-leaning is less a fact. It's vague because some people understand.
No, I disagree because who's the people? Who were the people that helped Barack Obama? You deny credit for a whole demographic that fights for immigration rights. You really do. You're just blowing that away. The people that advocate for these things, the activists, they're not Republicans. So everybody's saying, "Whoa, you're just." There's activists that actually do the fighting in cities, in states, and you guys are just saying, "Oh, you're being vague." No, you have to give credit to people that actually do the fight, that are protesting for abortion rights right now. You guys are denying the fact because you're like saying, don't label them. No, they do have a political affiliation, and I don't agree with all their political affiliations. If they're a Biden bro, we're probably gonna have some arguments.
But it's going to be easier for you to get people together,
right?
And fight for one cause if you don't label them left and right.
Let me counter what you just said though, Emiliano, as well, because for example. The fact that so many Republicans, if not all of them, don't lobby more for immigration reform and fairer treatment of immigrants is because they've been told it's a left-leaning policy to do that.
And the Democrats that have advocated for immigrants have been told by the left.
Because let me hold on. Because my mother, for example, and people at my church who were Republican their whole lives and are generally conservative, when they found out what was happening with my wife, they thought it was ludicrous.
But they had a personal connection. She's part of their hierarchy.
Have been told that conservative is one thing, and anything that that is being identified as left, they can't have anything to do with. So they can't take a critical approach to how do we solve this problem.
Yeah, if she wasn't your wife, they would have cared.
Right.
But she's part of your hierarchy. That's why they care.
No, see, the reason is they just assumed that if an American citizen married an immigrant, they got automatic citizenship, and they didn't realize that the policy had changed.
And they would have kept assuming that. I'm just saying, I mean, that you probably have some truth in it, but I just don't think they would have ever changed their mind if they didn't have that personal relationship with your wife.
Well, that was just something that let them knew what the effects of the existing policy really was.
Yeah,
Perhaps.
we just need to get to a point where you just talk about if you think that that specific case is fair or not, and not then say that you're left or right or conservative or liberal. I mean, just what do you think of each issue? And there's, there aren't that many major issues. I mean, you can just identify yourself as, what your political points are.
Yeah, that reminds me.
We should get to that point
that I had with one of my friends, because I was like really hardcore. Both parties, let's just flush them down the toilet. I went through that stage too. And then I was like, whatever, I don't care. It's like they're both trash, they're both corrupt. I still do believe that, by the way. But I was trying to really hear my friend out because he's very intelligent. And he's a Democrat, and he's like, well, there's always going to be a winner or loser, but there's consequences. And then I don't think people really dig into those consequences. And I'm not trying to justify one party or the other. Let's just talk about the consequences of allowing one side to win. And then he's also the one that brought the attention. He's like, well, do you vote in the local elections? And I was like, no. Do you vote in state elections? Like, no. So that's why I'm super critical, because I was guilty for that too. So, here I am saying, oh, Biden's not going to do nothing. He's like, what the hell? You want Trump to win? I mean, look at the Supreme Court. There's already people's rights going away. I mean, come on. And it's like, okay, that's a good point. He goes, what do you do? I mean, it's just like people don't really do what they need to do.
That has to be broken. This two-party, this shaming if you're not for us type of thing. I mean,
it's not shame, has to be Edwards. I'm saying it's consequence. There's no shame in losing a right to do something. It's what it is. It's just what it is. It's not shaming you. You're going to lose something if somebody gets power. You might not, you might will, but there was an example of people losing rights because one side won and the other side didn't.
Yeah. I mean,
he got to a point.
One can argue like that, but that's short visioned. I mean, we've been doing this for decades and decades. Yeah. I mean,
those rights were sustained for 50 years. I mean, or how long ago? How many decades were it? It happened like
the Democrats could have done something about it. They don't.
What could have they done?
They could have codified it before now.
Yeah, they could have codified it.
That's just an obstacle. That wouldn't have done anything.
Right, and then you, with that same argument, they're not going to do anything again once they get elected. I mean, they don't want to. They don't have to. What they want to do is they want to make money on their corporate connections. That's it. And they want to bullshit and gaslight the populace, which they do. And we're stuck in the situation that, I mean, even I think it was in these recent court cases for the January 6th thing, where people are saying they were against Trump. They said things outwardly against Trump, and they get, death threats. They get calls. Their families are threatened. That's horrible. That's 1933 or 1931.
Well, one
Germany,
of the things that I have a conflict in my head, you guys keep on saying corruption. And I buy into that word a lot too. But I also invited another word to describe it, incompetence. I think people that are in that position are really out of touch.
They're incompetent if they're not making money. But if they're making money, they're corrupt. Basically.
Well, they probably have a different mindset. I mean, because
fair.
Yeah, right. If they're making money on being our employees, extra money by having connections to corporations and voting for what corporations want instead of what we want, then they are corrupt. And we just wouldn't treat our employees like we treat our politicians. That's completely dysfunctional.
I don't know. I mean, if you lost to Trump, like Hillary Clinton, there's like a certain level of incompetence of not realizing how that person's going to be able to beat you. And the same thing with the Republican primaries.
So okay, you can.
I mean, it's just like it's been getting to the point where it's just ridiculous. Like it's embarrassing. It's like,
well, what about this Democrats funding radical Republicans so that they can have somebody that they can more easily beat?
What's that
in the election?
Where did
have you heard about that?
I've never heard of that.
Well, that's what they did with Trump. I mean, the Democrats, right? They funded Trump at the beginning because they thought he would be more easy to beat than, for instance, the Bush guy who was running.
Who funded Trump?
Democrats.
The Democrats.
From the DNC funded a Republican candidate.
Yeah,
they're wanted doing it now too.
Yeah.
Is that even
they're basically
the funding Democratic?
They're funding MAGA candidates. They're funding Trump-approved candidates because they think it will be easier to beat them.
I understand the logic, but I just don't think that's legal
in state-level elections. Right, but it's. I mean, that's a form of gaslighting. Actually,
it makes sense. Well, it's just a strategy in a broken,
let me read
dysfunctional
it says
system.
Political groups and nonprofits aligned with the Democratic Party. It's not the DNC that's going to fund Republicans.
Who funds the DNC?
I'm just saying. You're okay. Now you're pivoting. I specifically.
I mean, it's the shareholders.
Well, it's just the general. I mean, the thing is that I don't know if you have to.
The DNC is
prove this,
donors.
But it makes sense in this kind of broken system.
Yeah, corporations are going to fund both parties. I'm not going to disagree with that.
No, but the way the system is set up, it would make sense to vote for someone who is so nutty and QAnon.
I agree with you there. But that's not the point I'm addressing. I was trying to see if the DNC was funding Republicans. And then when I said that wasn't the case, y'all guys were talking about like.
But do we know it's the case? I mean, where did you find that? I mean,
well, I'll show you it right now. Okay, I can share it with you.
Okay.
All right. So that's. I mean, like I said, I'm not going to deny the fact that. Let me go ahead. God dog. Okay, here it is. I think that's it. Let's see.
But I mean, people who fund the.
Yeah. Are you able to see this?
Yeah.
Political groups and nonprofits aligned with the Democratic Party. I mean, I didn't read the whole thing, but just reading the first sentence.
Right, but that's bad enough. That's
how
happening.
Is that not them? That would be my question. How is
that? Because it's against
them?
the law. If you're the DNC, you're getting money from the people that are donating to the Democratic Party. That's fraud. They're donating to the. You can't use people's donations.
The dysfunction here is that people
who
are
pivoting big time. These are independent organizations. They align with the Democratic Party.
No, but what this is showing is that this is just showing how this broken system creates extremist
people can donate to whoever they want.
Right. And the system
say, they donated to Democrats, but they're not allowed to donate to Republicans anymore. I don't understand your logic. It's like someone just changing their mind or doing what benefits them.
No, that's not it though. It's collusion between big money and the Democratic Party to try to infiltrate and undermine.
Businesses are not allowed to
and
donate.
A solution would be to have third parties, fourth parties, fifth parties in there.
I can concede that that's not morally right because they have a lot of resources to give to a political party, but they are allowed to donate. They're allowed to do that. So if you don't want them to be allowed to do that, just say that.
I'm not saying that they shouldn't be allowed to do that. They should be allowed to do.
Okay. Well, then why is it a problem for someone?
It's a problem because it leads to extremism. That's why it's a problem.
Okay.
I mean, what is happening is leading to extremism, and this is just.
So if Citibank wants to donate to the Republican Party, it's leading to extremism. I mean, I agree.
No,
I'm just saying
it depends. No,
like
I'm saying that if you only have two parties, and the system works that you have races where a candidate is chosen for each party,
I
it makes
agree with
sense
you,
for
Edward.
the opposite party to
But that's
try to
not the
get
point I
an
was addressing. I was just trying to fact check the fact that you guys said DNC. And then when you guys
Okay, well,
disagreed with the fact
yeah,
that
but I would say that that doesn't really matter who's funding them. I'm saying that this
it matters if you're
structure,
looking for truth, and you guys were not
well,
being pretty truthful with that accusation. I
Well,
mean,
no, because
no,
I still consider that effectively the DNC.
but what if they vote for? I mean, well, that's
Because they're not doing it to actually forward a Republican for a Republican to win. They're doing it to forward Democrat Party priorities.
well,
It's an act of war. It's an act of subterfuge.
perhaps, but it's legal, and we can't just.
My problem is not that it's legal
yeah,
or illegal.
it's not the problem.
Yeah.
So
It's that it's
what's your
happening.
solution? What's your solution?
My solution is just that people should know it's happening, and the
Yeah.
party, well, both parties should go away.
My solution is to make sure we construct a very coherent way to describe what's happening. I mean, the DNC is not
Here's a very coherent way.
It is. Well, hear
Both
me out.
parties are screwing the living crap out of
And
all
everyone
of us,
knows that.
and
the
they've got
solutions
us
aren't
turned
coming.
against each other.
Yeah,
But that's, yeah, I understand that. But when you're trying to make an argument with somebody that voted for Biden and telling them the DNC's freaking donating to the Republican Party, and that's not true, you're not going to do a very good job of telling a Biden supporter that their party's corrupt by lying.
That's
So
fair, but I wouldn't call it lying, but your overall point is fair.
It wasn't the DNC. A lie's a lie. It's a small one.
I mean, it was. It's the DNC. It's their alignment is the same. Their goal is the same.
Yeah, but
okay. But when you're looking at the angle of trying to convince someone that votes Democrat, like blue dog Democrat, you're going to fail if you're using labels. The DNC, that's a label. I mean, you guys can't even stick to your own.
Yeah, but
criticism.
you're
Just
right,
stick to the truth.
Yeah, you're right, Emiliana. It's. I mean, if it's actually true
right.
that
I just looked it up in front of your face.
Yeah, but that's one article. I mean, but I mean,
Edward, you're going to make me do it again now.
No, I think you're right on that very technical point.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's
you very well could be right.
If you're trying to prove a point to another Democrat, if you want to try to talk some sense into a Joe Biden supporter like my dad, and if he sees that, he's like, yeah, you're not.
No, I think you're right about that. I think in general, in terms of persuading somebody else, you're right.
Yeah, but this is why argumentative conversation is so useful, is because, I mean, you defended, I mean,
I'm not defending them. I'm just telling
no,
you.
No. I'm saying something else. James made an argument, and you attacked his argument and said it's not accurate. And the point that you attacked was that it's not the DNC that's funding.
Yeah.
Okay, then James has to back up and say, okay, you're probably right. You know, we have the internet. Okay, we can say, okay, you're actually right. It's probably not the DNC. It's other people. But then James then reconstructs his argument and says people who support the Democrats are funding extremist
I'm not
Republicans.
looking to win a debate with James. I'm trying to see what's the most effective way to talk sense into people.
Yeah, but I think argumentative conversation. Argumentative conversation is a way to do that, and so that's what it forces people to do. So, you know, I think James and I have the same argument here. We have to go back and say you're right. DNC, as far as I just Googled, you're right. So I would say that's not my argument. My argument is that Democrats are funding. I mean, people who support the Democrats are funding extremist Republicans, and that is damning enough. That's a new argument, and it's probably and it's true.
James for that. He voted for Trump. I mean, it just goes in a circle. I mean, it's just like
it doesn't go in a circle. That's just a new argument. That's
why I don't care about
very true.
I just care about the truth and stick to policy and whatever helps the momentum for that. This will not help the momentum for Medicare for all, saying, hey, the Democrats, it doesn't help. That won't help my dad saying, you know what? Bernie Sanders is right. You know, it's just like.
But what would your dad say about Democrats funding radical Republican candidates?
Oh, they're all corrupt. So you have to build a case.
Who's all corrupt?
All
politicians?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if he says that, why is he voting for Democrats? Then that's a contradiction.
Right.
Edward, that's how majority of people think. They can't really articulate a case. That's why I'm trying to normalize the conversations.
Right, but that's what argumented.
Thinking
right,
critically.
but that's what argumentation.
You guys are outliers. You know this, right? James, you and me are outliers.
But
regular people don't think this way. They don't vote.
Right, and that's why they don't stay in conversations. If you stay in a conversation and you argue, and you present arguments, and then people have to attack those arguments, and if you, like you just did, you make a good point and you attack the argument well, then we have to change the argument. And now we have a new argument.
But
and that argument,
academia used to be, by the way, that used to be the scientific method.
It works. And the thing is, in our software teams, that's how we talk, because if we don't, our software will fail.
Well, let's move along. But the thing is, it's like, I mean, that doesn't matter to me. It's just like, if you get credibility with people, regardless of what part of the spectrum you are, it's about getting credibility. They'll listen to you. You get somebody's ear, and it's up to you to make a case, no matter what you label yourself. If I want to label myself a right winger, you know, if I can make a good case to get people to see, you know what, he makes a good point. He gave me some policies. And if I vote for politicians or Republicans, you know what, I like that. Yeah. You have to sell it, market your angle.
Yeah, you said the word market. I mean, that sounds like sales, and
it is. That's what it is.
Marketing.
That's what politics is in the United States.
Right. It shouldn't be, though.
Correct.
It shouldn't be.
Okay, so it shouldn't be. Well, let me go ahead and ask you guys, when you guys put a sign, that's what stores do to market your ideas. It's a marketplace of ideas.
Right, but that sign is basically an argument, and there should be long form conversations which attack that sign. And the problem is, on social media, corporations put up a sign, people attack that sign like I did, and then you get this person who looks like a real person.
What's the difference between a corporation putting a sign and us putting a sign up?
We have conversations and they don't. They smear people.
They have conversations with their interests with other people that have their same interests. I mean, it's us against them.
No, they don't. I mean, as what happened. I mean, there was somebody in that conversation who just started to smear and troll the conversation without presenting arguments.
You're talking about trolls. I'm talking about corporate interests with them, with CEOs
or like, look at the movie Super Size Me. You know, there was this guy who criticized McDonald's, you know, ate McDonald's for a month, you know, got totally unhealthy. He tried to contact the company numerous times. They don't return calls. They should.
He's not in their hierarchy. They're going to talk to other people that have the same interests and work against our interests. It's us against them. And that's where I kind of align with you guys, as far as like both parties are gravitating to the interests of people that have more money, more resources. And the only way we could probably fight back kind of still is through voting. And if, regardless if you vote Republican, Democrat, Independent, you have to think on the issues. And I don't think most people do that. And you have to find common ground with them or find a way to get their attention. And I don't know what the answer is. I see you
trying to fix the system from within the system, but I don't see evidence that that's going to work.
Not necessarily. It's just to create a conversation. I never said I'm going to try to go. I mean, if someone has a good idea, I'll go, oh yeah. My idea is to go against the system, start small. I already gave you guys an example of how not to go Democrat and Republican. It's just when we go to the part where you have to decide on a national scale, I mean, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and vote for the party that I can justify why I think it's better. But on a smaller scale, we can definitely be more flexible. I mean, if I were to run for president, I'm not going to win.
Emiliano, let me show you though, the idea over time is in this election, let's call it 2024. You know, maybe, you know, let's just say me and Edward got the attention of 1 million people, and that's, I don't know.
Are you looking at a presidential
election?
That's the issue.
let me just, I know, but let me show you, because I know what your point is with the small scale stuff. But if you can get, you know, 1 million people or 1% of voters to vote third party or write-in because they're dissatisfied with the Republicans and Democrats overall, then they're going to go, that's not much, but, you know, keep an eye on it. A couple of election cycles later, that number grows to like 10%. Both parties are going to pay attention and be like, oh crap, this number is just getting bigger. We either can't do what we need to do, or then a third party actually has an opportunity to come in and leverage that and actually create disruption.
They can't even
But
debate.
that needs that, and then that also happens from the bottom down, or you do that also at the bottom.
Yeah, I don't really understand how that
willing to
they can't even get on
sacrifice,
the debate stage.
you have to be willing to sacrifice, you know, short-term victories.
And that's
but we need to have an election where there's a debate and nobody cares about it, and there's so much grassroots movement. We have social media, we have a way to communicate with each other. We didn't have that in the 70s.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what
I'm trying happen
to use.
And I think there's there are signs that there's, I mean, definitely there's a growing disgust of both.
Okay, can I just interject? Because one of the things that James said, and I think you might agree with him, is like we have to be able to sacrifice.